Commander James Ghost Sullivan pushed his mop cart through the pristine corridors of Naval Special Warfare Command at exactly 2,200 hours. To the young SEALs gathered around the tactical planning table, he was invisible, just another night shift contractor earning minimum wage. "We'll breach from the north at 0400, said Petty Officer Davis, stabbing the map with his finger. "Standard room clearing, nothing fancy." Sullivan's weathered hands tightened on the mop handle. Standard room clearing in that urban environment would get them killed. The approach vector was all wrong. No consideration for overlapping fields of fire or civilian evacuation routes. "Hey, Pops," called out Seaman Johnson, barely 22 and fresh from BUD/S. "You missed a spot over there." He pointed dismissively toward a corner, not bothering to look up from his gear inspection. The other operators chuckled, their attention already back on their mission brief. None of them noticed how Sullivan moved with perfect military bearing, how his eyes automatically assessed entry points and defensive positions, or how he positioned himself to overhear their tactical discussion while maintaining his janitorial cover. "Target building has 3 levels, Davis continued, his voice carrying the confidence of someone who'd never faced real enemy fire. "We go in hard and fast, minimal intel required." Sullivan bit back a correction about the importance of detailed reconnaissance. In his 30 years of classified operations, he'd seen too many young operators pay the price for that kind of arrogance. "What's Grandpa doing in the classified briefing area?" Petty Officer Martinez whispered, loud enough for Sullivan to hear as he emptied trash bins near the planning table. "Probably doesn't even have proper clearance," Davis smirked. "Just some contractor they trust to push a mop around sensitive areas." Sullivan continued his methodical cleaning, his trained eyes scanning the mission documents spread across the table. Satellite imagery of compound in Syria, troop movement schedules, extraction routes, all classified materials that would require TS/SCI clearance to access. "Hey, old man," Johnson called out. "You ever serve? Or just been cleaning up after real warriors your whole life?" The group erupted in laughter. Sullivan's jaw tightened imperceptibly, but his hands remained steady as he wiped down surfaces around their workspace. "Look at him," Martinez continued. "Probably thinks he knows something about military operations from watching movies." As Sullivan moved past their tactical display, he noticed a critical error in their assault plan. The building schematics showed a basement level they'd completely missed, a common oversight that had gotten entire teams ambushed in similar urban environments. "Excuse me," Sullivan said quietly, his voice carrying decades of command authority despite his civilian clothes. "That structure has a subterranean level. Your current approach doesn't account for—" "Thanks for the input, janitor," Davis cut him off sharply. "We'll handle the actual military work." The young SEALs exchanged glances, their dismissal complete. Johnson deliberately knocked over his coffee cup, the dark liquid spreading across the briefing table toward classified documents. "Oops," he grinned. "Looks like you've got more work, Pops." The other SEALs laughed as Sullivan quickly moved to protect the sensitive materials, his instincts to preserve operational security overriding his cover. "Man's got good reflexes for a janitor," Martinez observed mockingly. "Almost like he actually cares about this stuff." Davis kicked over a wastebasket, spilling papers across the floor. "Since you seem so interested in our mission planning, might as well clean that up too." Sullivan's hands clenched as he knelt to collect the scattered documents. Among them, he spotted drone reconnaissance photos showing enemy positions the young operators had completely misidentified in their briefing. "You know what I think?" Johnson leaned back in his chair. "I think our custodial friend here never served a day in his life. Probably fantasizes about being a real operator while he mops floors." "Definitely stolen valor vibes," Davis agreed. "These wannabes are everywhere these days." The accusations hit deeper than any physical blow. Sullivan had bled for his country in places these kids couldn't find on a map, led missions so classified they'd never appear in any official record. Suddenly, piercing alarms shattered the night air. Red emergency lights bathed the corridor as the facility's automated voice announced, "Security breach." All personnel report to stations. Lockdown protocol initiated. The young SEALs jumped to their feet, their casual arrogance instantly replaced by confused panic as reality crashed into their training exercise mindset. What the hell is happening? Davis shouted over the blaring alarms, his earlier confidence evaporating as steel blast doors began sealing corridor sections. Authentication required. All personnel must verify security clearances, the automated system announced. Red scanner lights activated at every terminal. Johnson frantically swiped his CAT card at the nearest reader. Access denied, insufficient clearance level flashed on the screen. This is bullshit. Martinez slammed his fist against the terminal. We're SEALs. We should have access to everything. Sullivan watched the young operators panic, recognizing the facility's condition red protocol. Someone had breached the classified server room, likely targeting DevGru operational files. Standard procedure required TS/SCI clearance or higher to access emergency systems. Try the backup authentication, Davis ordered, his voice cracking under pressure. I don't know the backup codes, Johnson admitted, sweat beading on his forehead. The facility's main lights dimmed to emergency power. Through reinforced windows, Sullivan could see security teams mobilizing in the courtyard, their practiced movements indicating this wasn't a drill. Unauthorized access detected in SCIF Level 5. Potential compromise of DevGru operational files, the system announced. The young SEALs exchanged terrified glances. DevGru files contained real-time intelligence on ongoing operations worldwide. A breach could cost lives, their teammates currently deployed in hostile territories. We need someone with higher clearance, Martinez said desperately, looking around the sealed corridor. Where are the officers? Why isn't anyone responding? Sullivan continued mopping, his movements deliberate and calm despite the chaos. He knew exactly which protocols needed activation, but revealing that knowledge would blow his carefully maintained cover. Try the emergency override, Davis commanded, hammering random buttons on the security console. That's not how TS/SCI authentication works, Sullivan said quietly, unable to watch them fumble with classified systems. You need to input the daily rotating cipher first, then biometric confirmation. The SEALs spun around, staring at the janitor who'd just demonstrated knowledge of top-secret protocols. How do you know about? Martinez began. Infiltration confirmed. Hostile personnel in building. All available operators report for immediate deployment. The system interrupted. Johnson's hands shook as he tried the security panel again. I can't get through. My clearance isn't high enough. Sullivan moved closer, his decades of muscle memory taking over. The system's in lockdown mode. Someone with command authority needs to authenticate using the Zebra protocols. Zebra protocols? Davis stared at him. That's classified command structure. How the hell do you know about? Explosions echoed from the building's upper levels. Through the reinforced windows, they could see muzzle flashes and smoke grenades deploying in the corridors above. Our guys are getting hit up there, Martinez said, his voice tight with fear. We need to help them, but we're trapped behind these security doors. Sullivan's jaw tightened as he heard the distinctive crack of M4A1 carbines mixed with AK-47 fire. His brothers were under attack, and these young operators were helpless behind barriers designed to protect classified materials. The manual override is behind that panel, Sullivan said, pointing to a concealed access port. But you need proper authentication codes and command authorization to activate it without triggering the facility's self-destruct sequence. Heavy automatic weapons fire erupted directly overhead. Dust rained from the ceiling as the sound of breaching charges echoed through the facility's steel framework. They're getting slaughtered up there. Johnson pressed against the reinforced window, watching SEAL team members retreat under heavy fire. We have to do something. Davis pounded the SEAL blast door. Our brothers are dying. Sullivan couldn't stand it anymore. 30 years of command instincts overrode his cover as he moved to the emergency panel with practiced precision. "Step back," he ordered, his voice carrying unmistakable authority. The young SEALs automatically obeyed, recognizing command presence when they heard it. Sullivan's fingers flew over the keypad, entering authentication codes burned into his memory from decades of classified operations. Alpha 700 Delta Tango, he spoke clearly into the voice recognition system. Command authentication accepted. Override protocols activated. The system responded immediately. The blast doors cycled open with a pneumatic hiss. "How did you?" Martinez started. "Radio check. All stations." Sullivan barked into the emergency communications panel, using proper military protocol. "This is Ghost Actual. Requesting immediate sitrep on hostile contact. Over." "Ghost?" came a stunned voice through the radio. "Ghost Actual? Sir, is that really you? This is Bravo 6. We have multiple Kia. Need immediate tactical support." Sullivan was already moving, his janitor's coveralls unable to hide the lethal grace of a combat veteran. "Weapons locker now. You three are with me." The young SEALs followed without question, finally recognizing they were in the presence of someone who belonged in this world of violence and precision. Sullivan grabbed an M4A1 carbine from the weapons locker, his hands moving with muscle memory as he performed an immediate action drill. Chamber check, safety selector, magazine seating, all within 3 seconds. "Left side, staggered column formation," he commanded, leading the young SEALs up the stairwell toward the gunfire. "Watch your crossfire zones." As they moved tactically through the corridor, Sullivan rolled up his sleeves to free his movement. Martinez, following close behind, caught sight of intricate ink work on Sullivan's left forearm. The SEAL trident was unmistakable, but this wasn't the standard Navy tattoo. Embedded within the eagle's wings were specific unit designations that made Martinez's blood run cold. "DevGru," Martinez whispered, recognizing the subtle symbols that only team members would understand. The skull and crossbones weren't decorative. They indicated active service with SEAL Team 6. But it was the smaller details that stopped Martinez cold. Hash marks indicating multiple combat deployments, a small 6 hidden in the anchor's design, and dates that corresponded to classified operations he'd only heard whispered about in training. "Contact front," Sullivan called out, immediately dropping to a combat crouch as hostile muzzle flashes erupted from the far end of the corridor. As Sullivan returned precise, suppressive fire, his sleeve rode higher, revealing more of the tattoo. Martinez saw unit citations, deployment ribbons, and command insignia, but most shocking of all, the distinctive gold leaf pattern that indicated field-grade officer rank. "Commander?" Martinez breathed, the pieces suddenly falling into place. The man he'd been mocking as a janitor was wearing the ink of a SEAL Team 6 commander, one of the most elite warriors in the entire U.S. military. "Bravo Team, execute immediate action drill number 3, Sullivan commanded through his headset, his voice cutting through the chaos with absolute authority. "Charlie Team, shift fire to the northwest stairwell. Delta, I need overwatch on the roof access." The transformation was startling. Gone was the quiet janitor. In his place stood a seasoned combat commander coordinating multiple SEAL teams with surgical precision. "How copy, over?" Sullivan's radio discipline was flawless, using proper authentication codes that only senior operators possessed. "Solid copy, Ghost Actual." Moving to positions now, came the immediate response from teams throughout the facility. Martinez watched in amazement as Sullivan read the tactical situation like sheet music. Every movement, every command decision demonstrated decades of combat leadership at the highest levels. "Johnson, establish a base of fire at that corner. Davis, you're with me on the breach. Martinez, cover our 6 and watch for a counterattack from the service tunnels." "How did you know about the service tunnels?" Davis asked breathlessly. "Because I helped design the security protocols for this facility," Sullivan replied matter-of-factly while reloading his M4A1 with practiced efficiency. The young SEALs executed his orders without question now, their earlier arrogance replaced by professional respect. They'd trained under good instructors, but this was different. This was learning from a legend. Ghost Actual, this is Base Commander, crackled through the radio. We show 4 tangos neutralized, situation contained. Your status. All friendly personnel accounted for, sir. Sector 7 secure. Sullivan responded with the calm professionalism of someone who'd done this countless times before. Martinez stared at the man who'd been invisible just minutes ago, now orchestrating a counterterrorism operation with surgical precision. As the last hostile was neutralized and the facility secured, Martinez found himself studying Sullivan's tattoo more closely. Hidden beneath the seal trident, barely visible unless you knew what to look for, were additional markings that made his heart race. A small eagle indicated field-grade officer status. 3 chevrons meant multiple command positions. But it was the tiny classified symbol near his wrist, a marking Martinez had only seen in one place before: the unit briefing room, where photographs of legendary SEAL commanders hung on the walls. Martinez's breath caught as recognition hit him like a sledgehammer. The weathered face, the tactical bearing, the effortless command presence. He'd seen this man before in classified briefings and unit histories. Commander James Sullivan, Martinez whispered, his voice filled with awe. Ghost. SEAL Team 6. Sullivan turned, meeting the young operator's eyes with the steady gaze of someone who'd seen everything the world could throw at him. Without hesitation, Martinez snapped to attention and rendered a perfect military salute. Commander Sullivan, sir. The gesture was instinctive, drilled into him through years of military discipline. In the presence of a true legend, everything else fell away. Davis and Johnson, seeing Martinez's salute, immediately followed suit, their faces burning with shame as they realized the magnitude of their earlier disrespect. At ease, Sullivan said quietly, his command voice softening slightly. You did good work tonight, operators. But the damage was done. They'd spent hours mocking a man whose service record read like a Hollywood movie, if Hollywood had the clearance to know what he'd actually done for his country. Martinez held his salute a moment longer, honoring not just the rank, but the legend standing before him. Heavy footsteps echoed through the corridor as Captain Reynolds, the base commander, arrived with his security detail. His eyes swept the scene, neutralized threats, secured facility, and 3 young SEALs standing at attention before a man in janitor's coveralls. Commander Sullivan, Reynolds said, rendering a crisp salute. Sir, we weren't expecting you to break cover during the exercise. Exercise? Davis stammered, his face going pale. Reynolds nodded grimly. Red Team penetration test. Commander Sullivan has been conducting security assessments for the past 6 months, working undercover to identify vulnerabilities in our protocols. Sullivan returned the salute with practiced precision. The young operators performed adequately under pressure, Captain, though their initial security awareness needs work. Commander James Ghost Sullivan, Reynolds announced formally to the stunned SEALs. 30 years active duty, SEAL Team 6. Navy Cross, 3 Purple Hearts, Presidential Unit Citation. Led Operation Neptune's Revenge, Operation Dark Water, and 17 other classified missions I can't mention. Johnson's legs nearly gave out. Martinez felt sick remembering every mocking word they'd spoken. The commander volunteered for this undercover assignment to test our personnel's operational security and respect for support staff, Reynolds continued. Apparently, we have significant training deficiencies to address. Sullivan's weathered face remained impassive. They responded well once the shooting started, sir. Good tactical instincts, solid weapons handling. They just need to learn that every person on this base serves a purpose. The weight of their disrespect crashed down on the young operators like a tidal wave. They'd humiliated themselves before one of the most decorated warriors in SEAL history. Sir, Martinez began, his voice cracking with shame. We had no idea. The things we said, Sullivan held up a hand, stopping the apology. You treated someone you perceived as lower status with disrespect. That tells me everything I need to know about your character development. Davis stepped forward, his earlier arrogance completely shattered. "Commander, we fucked up. There's no excuse for how we acted." "Language, petty officer," Sullivan said mildly. "But you're right. You did fuck up." Captain Reynolds cleared his throat. Commander Sullivan specifically requested this assignment after reports of declining respect for support personnel. His findings will be included in our next training cycle revision. Sullivan's expression softened slightly as he looked at the three young operators. Every person on this base, cook, mechanic, administrative clerk, janitor, is part of the mission. Their security clearances are just as valid as yours. Their service just as important. "We understand now, sir," Johnson said quietly. "How do we make this right?" "You learn from it," Sullivan replied. "You treat every service member with the respect they've earned by raising their hand and swearing the oath. Rank and position matter, but basic human dignity matters more." Martinez felt the weight of the commander's words. "Sir, would you consider staying on as an instructor? We clearly have a lot to learn." Sullivan exchanged a glance with Captain Reynolds. "The commander has already agreed to transition from undercover assessment to active mentorship role," Reynolds announced. "You three will be his first students." For the first time that night, Sullivan smiled slightly. "Let's see if you can learn to be warriors and gentlemen simultaneously." 3 weeks later, Commander Sullivan stood before a packed briefing room, his Navy service uniform displaying 3 decades of ribbons and decorations. The same young SEALs who'd mocked him now sat in the front row, hanging on every word. "Operational security doesn't end when you leave the classified areas," Sullivan explained to the assembled operators. "Every interaction, every conversation, every person you encounter could be gathering intelligence on our capabilities." Martinez raised his hand. "Sir, how do we balance operational security with basic respect for support personnel?" "Outstanding question, Petty Officer Martinez. The answer is you treat everyone with professional courtesy while maintaining appropriate classification boundaries. Respect and security aren't mutually exclusive." Captain Reynolds entered the classroom. "Commander, we've received approval for your advanced leadership program. Looks like you'll be staying with us permanently." Sullivan nodded, his eyes finding the 3 young operators who'd taught him as much as he'd taught them. "Gentlemen, report to the training facility at 0600 tomorrow. We're going to learn how real operators conduct themselves both in combat and in garrison." After the briefing, Martinez approached Sullivan privately. "Sir, I wanted to thank you, not just for the training, but for showing us what true professionalism looks like. You earned that lesson the hard way, son. Don't waste it." As Sullivan walked through the facility that evening, every person he passed, cook, clerk, maintenance worker, officer, nodded respectfully. Word had spread about the legendary commander who'd reminded an entire base that honor wasn't determined by job title. The Ghost had found his final mission, ensuring the next generation of warriors understood that strength without character was just violence in uniform.